Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day, each and every one of you, your friends, your family, all of your relatives, and all of your relations will come to learn how to accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. Now, with that said, today, um, in doing my Watchmen series, gotta keep up with the Joneses, as it were, to find out what these crazy folks are up to. And there's a new gun law out there, and it's they really want to do this. They've been trying to get rid of the Second Amendment for a long time, and all different kinds of guns and ammunition and magazines and all this. And they literally, if you want to own a gun, you're going to have to register the bullets, how many you have. You're supposed to tell them where your weapon is, and any people in the house. If anything happens, they could be liable because they know about it, and you have to take a psychiatric test. And my point on that is the people who wrote this damn bill, they need to go see a psychiatrist. But in my thinking about this, and I'm not allowed to own a gun because the I committed, arrested me, charged me with possession of over an ounce of marijuana in the state of Georgia, and so that makes it a felony. So I can't own a gun. All right. So I'm thinking to myself, if they were to take all of the guns, and if you tell, I got my double billed hat on, my um, Sherlock Holmes hat, and somehow there is the game. The game is afoot, so that's why I was like, I'm gonna wear this hat. I love it. But the idea, though, that that somehow a bullet by itself can kill somebody, or that a gun without a person can harm someone. I mean, that it's the gun that's bad. No, but if they, confiscate them all, and I'm not so much into guns, but I used to have a rifle, and I loved target practicing with that rifle. And so I got an air rifle that you have to pump up, and which is fine with me for target practicing. It can kill us something or two if need be, like squirrels, small game. And they've got some air guns now that they go wild boar hunting with these things. I mean, they're $1,000 weapons, if you want to call them that, but they're relying only on air. So it's like, okay, so it's just a projectile. Well, the next thing you know, they're going to be saying, well, sharp sticks are going to be illegal next. If we got a sharp stick, you might poke an eye out. And we got to make sure that all of the Katniss, hey, how are you? We got to make sure that we can't let anybody have any string. And you say, well, why string? Because you could use a piece of stick and make a bow and arrow, or make a bow, and then maybe, I don't know, you could find something to make an arrow with. So we're gonna, and rocks. Oh my God, rocks. If we was to throw rocks at people, you might put an eye out or give a head concussion. Oh, wait a minute now, what about metal objects? I got a piece of, aluminum tubing that It's really light and easy to swing, and it's aluminum, it's soft. But you might damage somebody with that thing. And I would, sup, man, EB. So I'm sitting here watching the news and, catching up with stuff and listening to some things that I'm just like, oh God, I hate this job. I have to listen to the other side, and find out what these crazy people are up to. So I'm thinking to myself, if you had string and a couple of rocks, you could make a bolo. Them things you sling around, or you could make a sling like David and David and Goliath, and you could bring down a giant. Trash them Philistines. So they're going to make knives will have to be illegal, of course, because with a knife you can sharpen a stick. You know, and so, oh my God, I think everybody should just get a stick and sharpen one end and just walk around with the damn thing. People say, well, what's this? Well, you know, um, you tell me I don't have the right to, bear a firearm, but I can carry a damn stick. You know, there's a bunch of people out there with sticks, sharp sticks. Yeah, don't mess with us. We got sharp sticks. And we got some rocks in our pockets too. And string, oh my God, we could garrote you, we could do that thing around your neck, and oh my God, with sticks and a piece of string. Oh, holy shit, what's going to be next? Oh God, these people are going to start wanting to pick on one another, going to want to beat them up. They're going to make using our hands will be against the law next. And for God, if you know any kind of kung fu, then you're already a criminal. Think about that. I mean, honest to God, and you can't say mother, can't say grandmother, grandfather. It's the parent who squeezed out the baby. As well, wouldn't that be the mother? No, 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 no. We can't give a gender to that. Because what if the other mother of the other parent is a mother? Well, a woman. Well, you can't say woman, but she's a. Oh, hang on. What am I going to call these people? And it's like, and they want to be non-gender specific. Okay. Well, here comes a person. Can I say that word? And I'm going to, if they get any closer, I'm going to throw my sharp, pointy stick at them. Well, maybe I should throw the rocks because I can chunk them farther than I can a pointy stick. Well, what am I going to do with that string? Well, I could set traps, So come down my driveway or try to sneak up in and, oh my God, they'll make barbed wire against the law next, because barbed wire's got sharp barbs on it. And if somebody come running at you, you could, throw a metal object at them that with some barbed wire. Oh, that would hurt. Tell me what. So wait a minute, well, they want to put us back in the Stone Age. I say let's all go out in the yard somewhere, something, and get us a stick and sharpen it and carry it around. Because if nothing else, people go, "What the hell's going wrong with them nutty people over there?" They got a satchel on their back with some rocks in it. There's obviously some string around and a sharp pointy stick. And by God, they got a metal object to go along with it. And I just got to say to myself, okay, all right, well, back in the day of the Constitution, when it was written and all that kind of stuff, people had, Kentucky long rifles, and, it was really hard to hit anything because the barrels weren't rifled. So you shot it in the direction that, the general direction where you wanted it to go. And you prayed that it got there, much like the beginning of the Civil War, But this idea, though, that, wait a minute, if the Constitution is true, and it says that every person has the right to bear arms, it doesn't say except for felons. So, if I want a shotgun to protect myself from critters and, beasties out here in the swamp and in the woods, that should be my right and privilege, right? Oh, no, he's a felon. He smoked marijuana. And, by the way, smoking, if you got him, it's a little early. It's 2:11 here in the morning time on Thursday morning. We got more rain coming. It's been raining this afternoon. The river peaked at 7. It's almost 17 foot, 16.5 something feet, and slowly going down. But there's still a lot of water in the yard, and it's raining again. We're supposed to get another 2 to 3 inches of rain in the next 24 hours. So, what is 16 foot now at the river, usually with an inch of rain, it'll go up a foot, foot and a half. So, if it's at 16 foot now, and we get 3 inches of rain, we got another 4 foot. It's going to go up another 4 foot. It's going to flood some stuff because stuff's already flooded. But anyway, but this idea, though, that there are people out there who are trying to keep us from getting harmed or harming another person. And I want to say, my God, next they'll be taking away sharp, pointed scissors. Don't run with scissors. You could poke your eye out. Well, a lot of other things you could poke too. But with that said, though, is that what they're going to do, though? They're going to outlaw sharp sticks? You know what I mean? Because these folks are nuts. And I feel nutty too. I got my hat on backwards, sideways, and I'm feeling nutty tonight. Nully the Nut, or Nutty Null, or something, Nutty Nully. Michelle, how are you? Ray of Thos, Elderberry, I already said hi to you, but I love you anyway. Project Skyfall, how you doing? I was feeling a little bored and been cleaning up the house and doing stuff. I got an appointment sometime tomorrow. They're going to bring me a new modem and everything. What you said, right, Ray? I think the last time I had deja vu was 4 times within, and then I said too much of my wife. I'm going to break this. It was weird. Yeah, stuff like that is definitely weird. Yeah, I agree with you there, Ray. 2:13 in the morning time here in Southwest Georgia. And I didn't know that actually, hey, Cool Ben, Cole Ben, sorry. Here, let me hit this bowl one more time. I'm trying to see. And Katniss is still there. Hello, hello. She was one of the first peoples here. But anyway, good morning to you. And Project Skyfalls, I was reading your name, but I don't know if I said it out loud. I want to thank you all for being here this morning or this evening, depending on if it's not quite 12 o'clock in your, be Mountain Time and Pacific Time. But anyway, or somebody, on the other side of the pond. And sometimes we had another person came on from Australia who used to live in New Zealand. I thought that was wonderful. Duggar's asleep. Yeah, Duggar is asleep tonight. Y'all, he's sleeping. So, 2:15 a.m., 5 more minutes until the 20. I ain't waiting. Yeah, I was doing a video last night. Was about to wrap it up. Anyway, it'd been 2.5 hours or something like that. And the pooter started acting weird. Now, I got to say, I don't know about anybody else. Hard to lead the current of the stream. Yeah, the stream is literally right in my backyard now. It was flowing pretty good yesterday. Um, go with the flow. Oh God, I gotta pee now. No, I'm teasing. I got my coffee here. I haven't said hi to Bob in a while, but I thought I'd, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you know, more rain coming, but I got myself all agitated up. Now, y'all, some of you all know that I had someone that came and stayed with me for about 9 or 10 months last year, and when they left a bunch of stuff, along with my daughter who has left stuff here, my brother who left stuff here, several other people that have lived here before that have left stuff here. And I'm just in a quandary because some of the stuff's still good, but it ain't mine per se. It's finders keepers or left behind. And don't forget to say ween, y'all. It's Wednesday ween. No, actually now it's Thursday, but oh, it's almost the 20 mark. So I'm gonna repack. Um, but I gotta say that I got rid of some stuff when I started looking at the dates on some of the bills and things and stuff that I had. It was like 2017. So some of this shit has been stacked up for the last 4 years. Okay. And now I'm admitting this because I dealt with it. And I dealt with it very bravely and said, garbage can, where are you? Here I come. Blah, 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 blah. Now, my garbage can was an empty box that needed to be thrown out about a year ago. But anyway, uh, we got 3 more minutes, everybody. Get ready, because here I come. Do, 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 do. Now, I know I should probably be depressed and down and low and funky in the mouth. Daughter Piper's first birthday along the way has been magical. My daughter's birthday turned out better than expected. Wonderful. Yeah, I mean that. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Ween, exactly. That's just one of them crazy things we just have to. Um, I can't remember who it was. Red Skelton was sort of one of my heroes when I was growing up, and how he pantomimed and some of the stuff he did. Um, and he was funny without being nasty, and there was an interview with Red Skelton, Johnny Carson, and it was many years after Red Skelton that he was, no longer on television or doing movies or anything. And Johnny was like, well, why don't you want to, do your reruns? And he said, I've never watched myself. He said, I perform it and I do it. And he said, maybe later on in my life when I'm gone, I'll release the old shows and things like that. And which is why you couldn't find a Red Skelton anything for a long time because he was still alive. But he's got this, he only sleeps like 3 or 4 hours a night or per day. Um, and he said he gets up in the morning and he paints and does this, and then he writes every day, and there was all these things. And I mean, and he was like, Johnny asked him, you mean every day? And he goes, yeah, every day. And I do this and I do some that, and uh, got some key lime pie now. Oh my God, Barry, hush up. 220, smoke if you got them. I just got mine loaded. So those of you who can, um, Good for you, Ray. Somebody spit down this thing. I need to clean this thing. Must have drooled on it. And having a chat with my sister, and she goes, "Well, aren't you up there by yourself? You know, a lot, nobody there, kind of thing." And I was like, I do these YouTube videos, and I mean, I got a purpose. I'm supposed to help folks to um, be helping folks. Y'all hold that thought there a second. I got to get me something. I forgot. No, I don't have to go to Toyota yet. Oh, man, what you see? Sorry, I had to skip a beat. Yeah, Ray. A lot of people are dealing with anger for lots of different reasons. And one of the things in my spiritual self awareness thing, I realized that I'd been pissed off for a long, long time. And I don't know where I got pissed off. Somewhere way back when I was a child or something, I don't know. But the anger, um, of course, I had issues with the priest and all that kind of mess. But and maybe maybe that made me angry. I was angry because my parents and the family lied to me and my sister and brother and everybody. I mean, right up until they died, at least Becky anyway, my adopted mother. And I had to go get me a pipe cleaner. And I'm going through anyway, but there was anger in the ex-wives that took me for a ride, and I tried to well, don't you love me? Well, yeah. And then they turn around and rip you off and turn you into, they demonize you and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I didn't do that to you. Didn't I? Never ran around on my spouses or girlfriends, because I felt like if you was the one, then that was going to be that. But found out later on that several of my wives had you know uh, fooled around, and then blame me for fooling around when I never did. So it's been an odd life, and there's a lot of stuff I guess I could say. Well, that shit should anger me, and in a lot of ways it has. But whatever it was that made me angry, maybe it was the fact that I didn't read the fine print in my soul contract. You know what I mean? What you want me to do? What? But so, Hawkeye, did you read the fine print? Well, apparently not. Some bitch. There's this thing in here that says that you want me to do what? Okay, hang on there. So, I know I left Red Skelton out there in the middle, just kind of flopping in the ground. What I was thinking of is me and my hat right here. And he used to do those skits called Gertrude and Heathcliff, the two seagulls. Remember, if you ever watched him, I remember that. Hey, Chloe, how are you? Your mama to Nick 20 and Nate 5. So, Ray, I agree with you. From childhood, so much I need to release my anger at the injustice, easy for you to say. So many injustices in this beautiful creation of world. Absolutely. Michelle says, I am now an observer only. The trauma from childhood, etc. I'm only an observer now. And Michelle, are you being able to, I've talked about being an observer, and I think that's great. I really do, because you have to. But um, and I don't believe that you're having this issue, Michelle. I'm not picking on you, but I kind of sort of am, I guess, as far as using you as a guinea pig in this discussion. we um, that as the observer, sometimes we just don't want to participate in anything. All we want to do is just observe. And there are times when we need to work. I want to say work within this system, but in a way, that's what it is. It's the system of the world and how we are and that kind of thing. Hi Ed, how you doing? Chloe, hey. So for those of us who can, we're partaking now. I thought I would, in my Sherlock Holmes hat, with my pipe, sitting here in my lounge chair here, sitting and chatting with you all. I participate with the now. Ah, that's a good one. That's a good one, Michelle. The past never serves us. Now, here's the thing, though. It is 420 somewhere. Yeah, we've been 420 and since about 15 after. At least I have. Uh, Heck yeah! Don't you need an excuse, right? So at 2:28 here in the morning time, pretend it's 2:20. We can all set our clocks back for the next 10 minutes. We can just pretend. 4 days. This will be great. I know I win. Here's cheers and some coffee too to wash down that tangerine. Woo-hoo-hoo! Mm. Yeah, I think there's great movement going on in the universe and checking the channels and stuff. And I'm joking, but I'm not about the sharp stick comment and the string, because if you're inventive, you can make tripwires. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with string. And to try to make any kind of string on your own in the wild is really hard. So consequently, I have spools of string around of nylon. And, for a couple of bucks, you can buy a great big roll of builder's twine. You can get it in lime green and purple and all different kind of, um, you can set traps. You can, you know, if you have the materials, you can lash things together and make yourself a shelter, tie stuff. It's a variety of things you can do with string. I was looking at some of my, I have several backpacks, way too many. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is when I want to go in the kayak or canoe, I want to be able to have like all the kitchen stuff in in one pack. Okay. So that I can just grab that backpack. There's the kitchen. And I can still use it as a backpack, mind you, but you know, it stows in the canoe easy versus boxes and things that are clumsy, right? And you can always hang, if especially if you're in a forest, you can always put up a line and hang all of the backpacks, right? So you don't have them laying around, but you can string them up between two trees. And if you need something, it's off the ground, bugs don't get in it, blah blah blah, right? So, but I was thinking, you know, there are those things that are like, what are the bare necessities? Oh, the bare necessities, good old bare necessities. And one of the things that I remembered, and I need to get some more, as a matter of fact, but not having teeth is not much of an issue anymore. Um, but one of the things that you should have is a thing of dental floss. And I was like, what? Dental floss. It's strong as hell. And if you double it or triple it or more, you can make a damn rope out of this stuff. You can just about pull a four-wheeler out of a ditch with, you know? I mean, so, and it's really small, compact, one of those little thingies, right? Can tear it off, but you can start fires with it because of wax on it, stuff like that. You can tie stuff together. God forbid, you should get hurt like I hurt myself that day. And you know, it's been almost 2 years, and my finger is still numb where I got cut on the river that day. But anyway, it's still numb. Um, so I injured a nerve big time. I guess is my point. But you know, it'd been nice if I could have had some of that wrapped. I could have wrapped around my finger tight enough to where it would have been like a tourniquet, sort of kind of band-aid, you know, just wrap it around and wrap it around to close up the wound, right? It's clean, it's antiseptic, unless you dropped it in the river or something before, but it's wax over it. So, but anyway, so that a really good knife. Now, I have this old timer here, and old timer doesn't, you know, give me credit. And why I'm talking about this now, I'm not quite sure, but this knife is a fold out knife. I have skinned deer with this thing. I've cut insulation. I've I use it for all kinds of stuff. It's a little bulky, but it's heavy duty enough. And I've had this knife down in the swamp with me going on 30 years. I've had this thing. I bumped the table, didn't I? Not that you really need to see my ugly mug. But so get yourself a good knife. You know, if it costs 30 bucks, okay, don't get anything fancy. But an old timer, you know, it's about, it sticks out on both sides of your fist. The blade on it, now it does get a little rusty, but I don't care. The rust doesn't bother me. But in that, you know, this blade has literally been, you know, had water sitting in it, kind of thing. It's been through some stuff. And the fact that right now, you know, I could cut my finger off with this thing right now if I so choose. Maybe not get through the bone. I might have to hack on a little bit. It's really sharp. And so, as a best friend going down on the river, a good knife. Okay, now I have a machete that it's actually a bush axe, and it's about as thick, maybe a little thicker than this blade right here. Now I bring that up because I've seen people with axes and all kinds of, you know, I've got one of these titanium blade things, Bear Grylls or something like that, and his favorite survival thing. We had one break, and it wasn't due to any kind of undue stress. It's supposed to be titanium, okay? Now I've worked with titanium before when I was in the jet industry. Making parts for jet engines, right? With titanium blades, Inconel, steel, anyway. Um, so it and I did a trial and error of like, hey Regine, how are you? Greetings, greetings. So in doing them, and I go down in the woods all the time. I'm cleaning trails, right? I take my little bush axe and I always give it a good sharp, because no matter how good an edge you got on something, and even some of these stainless steel blades that I've seen, you go out there in the woods and hack a few trees down and this or that, your blade's going to get dull. You might even bend it a little bit, you know. So, but if I was to have something, and there's one in the back of my truck everywhere I go, just in case. But you go swinging that thing around, especially as sharp as it is, and I can cut a tree limb off like that in one good swipe if I cut it diagonally with the right pressure. Whoosh, bam, cut up. So you could really do some damage with somebody. So why am I talking about death and destruction? Because you can take one of them and make a bunch of sharp sticks with. Is where I'm headed with that. But no, but as a survival tool in the woods, you can cut a tree down with the thing. Okay. Another thing that a lot of people, I've got a 6-inch, what they call a bastard file, just a 6-inch file. And folks say, well, why do you got one of them in your pack, Dave? Because if I have to go hack a bunch of stuff up with my machete type thing, it's not a machete, it's a bush axe. And the blade's about yay long. Yeah. And they have a little hook on the end, which is great for pulling and tearing and stuff. But, you could have one under your seat. It lays flat in your trunk, for example, if you were going somewhere. But as protection in close combat, man, I wouldn't take anything else, because you could hurt going and coming with one of them things. Now, I'm not talking about that, but as far as survival goes, I was down in the woods clearing a trail the other day, me and Duggar, and I'm hacking on this thing and I'm clearing small brush, trees, and things, And goodness gracious, I was like, this is this has got to be, the thing that if you ever were in a forest situation and got stranded, whatever, you would want one of these things. I mean, it would, could literally mean life or death. So, but anyway, a lot of purposes. So I would make sure that I had me a bush axe, I'd have a file. I'd have some, um, dental floss, 2 packs if you were really worried. Some string. You can, like I said, that builder's twine. You can take that builder's twine. And for example, I noticed some other folks were using this, and me and Gray Wolf, back when I was training with him, we were making different kinds of bows, and one of them was a. Whoops. I just got up right in the middle of the sentence. Is one of these crossbows, one of these little handheld crossbows, and we were having trouble finding, at the time, we were having trouble finding string. So in one of the videos that I was watching, about, doing extra strings and whatever, was he used dental floss. So, and tied it in the middle where it's the thickest. So they went out here, made a loop for this end, and kept on going and doubled it and made a loop for this side, and then ran it several thicknesses here in the middle where the that hits the arrow. But anyway, so many different things. Not that y'all gonna carry around a um, you're gonna bake a coconut pie. That sounds good. I didn't get me a sweet tater pie this year, and I don't know how to make a pie crust. I don't know if I have any flour that's like worth anything. And have been. I can barbecue. I can cook. I can throw stuff together in a wok. I made tater soup tonight. That's really good. 3 cans of mushrooms, 4 um, good sized new potatoes, the red potatoes. Uh, about 2/3 of an onion is what I had left over. Um, a big old tablespoon of garlic, of course. A can of evaporated milk. I had a can of chicken and stars. I don't really like soups like that anymore. They have a taste. So I'm trying to get rid of some old stock of things. So I threw a can of that in there. Little tiny chicken chunks that God knows what they are. I don't know if they really are pieces of chicken or not, but and I'm fond of sage, so a sprinkle, a couple of really good dollops of crystal hot sauce, um, Louisiana hot sauce, some Cajun sprinkle, good sprinkle of pepper, some basil. I really like how basil brings out certain, especially in like with a potato soup, and then some oregano. And it simmered on the fire. Added some olive oil on the bottom, mixed it all up. It's a little runny right now, um, but the soup is still good. It's not real creamy. Now, if I'd had a can of uh, cream of mushroom soup, I would have added that in there. But I added a can of evaporated milk, and it's really yummy. It'll thicken up more too as it sets up, but um, you're about to float over. Yeah, my son has the same carnival blade. It's the same surgical steel Benchmade uses. Oh yeah, Schrade's another one. Um, there are a lot of good knives out there. I personally, because of how good this old timer is, and I've got this little pocket knife here that's an old timer, and these things I've had this one for 20 years, and this one more than that. I've had this as long as I've had this house. I got another one too, but I don't know where it is at the moment. But um, I think people should now. It's really bad right now. No electricity, folks out in, they're in reading some of the posts about the winter and everything. And God bless them. I mean, I know what it's like to be cold. I've had hypothermia 4 times. I mean, to the point of it takes hours to stop shivering, where your core body temperature drops drastically. And so it's not. I guess the good part about hypothermia is you get to a point where you just go to sleep. And I've gotten to the point where I went to sleep and woke up so cold I couldn't feel anything. I was literally in between here and there. It's really strange. But I meditated one time in North Georgia. It was the 1st of May that year. It was in the 80s somewhere. But it snowed that weekend, the 1st of May, up there in North Georgia and Tennessee and up in there. Went camping anyway. Well, I went prepared. My friend didn't, but um, we had some magic mushrooms with us, and it was my very much intention, which I did. I went up there to meditate with the spirits of the woods, and we had way back up. We ended up in a campground because we couldn't find anything with any decent water that we could get to because of the snow and the ice. So, there were other campers there. But we way up this edge where this little stream was bubbling by, kind of thing, North Georgia mountains. Yeah, I haven't been up there in a long time, but used to be gorgeous. I understand that a beetle infestation went through there and just devastated a bunch of the trees. But anyway, and a lot of people moved up there and a lot of other things. But anyway, so I was meditating with the shrooms, and it was cold. I mean, it was so cold it froze the water in our canteens. Canteens. Clean. So meditating, and spirit takes me straight up out of I've got this little campfire there, and it's just enough. It's warming up this little area, and so the front of me's warm, and the back of me ain't. So as I'm meditating, tripping my what off, I use the hot front and the cold back to find a middle so that I was warm. So I meditated on being just warm and allowing myself. I could see the fire through my eyelids, right? But I had my eyes closed, and I could hear the babbling stream, which was like less than 10 feet away from me, nice and loud. Well, easy to hear. And then the North Georgia mountains, fresh snow on the ground. It was about 28 degrees at that time, and just lifted right up out of that campsite, just right on out. And I just kept looking down, going, wow, there's the truck, and there's the stream, and oh my God, there's some campers right across this little creek. And oh wow, there's another fire over there, and there's 2 or 3 trucks there, and they're all having a wow. And I just went up into the treetops like this. Can't tell you how high, but I could see the surrounding areas, not all the mountains. And then all of a sudden, I was boom, back down. And within, I was not cold. My teeth weren't chattering. I was just out of body, right up out of there. But as soon as what happened was my friend came up, instead of like going, Dave, wake up. He grabs my shoulder and jerks me like this. And I come falling out of the sky and hit dead hard on my ass. But the interesting part about it was I wasn't cold until he did that. And then I was flipping, I was freezing. It was cold. And so it's interesting that during those states of, now I have done it without mushrooms, okay, but that's been, oh God, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, way back. I just purchased this place. So, but having that experience on mushrooms, I'd had it before without mushrooms too, but it was just that we had them when we went. Okay. So, I used to know of a field about 2 miles from here, but anyway, they quit raising cattle and started a chicken farm upstream from me, literally about, well, maybe 2.5 miles. But the experience of the trip allowed me the experience of what I could achieve if I worked on it without any type of, mushroom or acid or anything like that. Now, I've never tried DMT, but I have tried some stuff In my day, I way back when I had some real peyote. Holy mackerel. Mescaline. Oh my God, a mescaline trip. You don't hear folks talking about mescaline much anymore. But I have eaten the worm out of the bottom of a Jose Huervo, which is supposed to be from the mescal plant. So technically, if you eat the worm, you're supposed to trip. Well, I don't know if I was tripping, but I was sure messed up. Chicken and stars are your favorite too. I feel the munchies coming. Me too. I'm gonna have to go to the store, but tomorrow's supposed to be storm Ming. And my truck, I don't know what's going on. It's been raining and nasty so much, and then today it was out trying to clean up some and everything and get ready. The telephone man is coming tomorrow to bring a new modem and new connectors or whatever, um, and make sure that um, all of my appliances work with the new modem. And so I've got the modem stuck up over in the corner, and I was like, he's not going to be able to get to it. And so, it's cleaning that I should have done a long time ago. So rather than bitch about it, I just, took a muscle relaxer pill from a saved by a friend of mine for hard times. We traded. And so I was like, okay, I can't do this because I'm hurting really bad. But the guy's going to be here like today now, the 18th. Yeah, it is. It's my Sherlock Holmes hat. You know, not I like playing Doofy. Doofus. Hey y'all, this is Doofus. you know. But anyway, I one of the things that I was thinking about earlier was while I was listening to some folks about how people out in Texas and possibly other places who are like, two or three or four families are just literally camping in the living room of somebody's house. They're out of firewood. There are people calling and begging other people, to try to get firewood. And I just think to myself, I am so glad that I made the choices I did to have this place, because all of the things that people are suffering with now, I might not have it, excuse me, I might not have it cut in the backyard, but if I walk down in the woods, all I got to do is just, well, there's some over there and there's some over there. Every time I go down, I always drag something back up the path with me to burn. And so I just got to cut it up then into small enough pieces to put it in the stove. But so I don't worry about being cold. Um, I'm not worried about my pipes freezing or anything like that, because I've been there, done that. Um, and if I didn't have electricity, I would still have my wood stove. I would still be warm. So, and lots of blankets, but there's and water. I got two 1,000-gallon tanks with rainwater in it, and I make my coffee with the rainwater every day. Um, but my well is an open well. I got a bucket. I can drop it down in there and pull me up a bucket of water if I need it. So it's like, but I planned this out as as a young hippie, and in the days of Mother Earth and Mother Earth News. I still have some of those original big Mother Earth News magazines. But anyway, so people have gotten themselves into certain situations, and I guess because I knew a long time ago that it was going to be necessary to at least have the capability. Now there are a lot of folks down here in my neighborhood, and I don't mean just in Colquitt County or right here, but um, they know how to scrounge. Now, not necessarily, I mean, I'm old and decrepit, but I know some 68-year-old people that could not go down in the woods and drag anything back up here to burn. You know what I mean? And no offense to them, but I'm lucky that I can. Some days I can't do it, but I'm lucky that I can still do it, and I have the resources. So yes, I live a simple life, and yeah, my house really does need work. And yes, I've been begging folks to come. I'll pay if you come help me, but that still hasn't worked out. But every day I get a little bit more done. But in my story is your story. So with all that's going on, if folks have the opportunity to be able to make a different choice from this point on, knowing what they know now, knowing that the wind farms and everything, somebody in Texas, stepped down or something. Anyway, but the idea that they've been giving us a snow job, think about that, they've been giving us a snow job about this. But those of us who have been practical thinkers of like, let's make something that doesn't require any movement, for example, um, I remember back in the day because I helped build a couple of these, right? And I kind of sort of that's what my house is modeled on. But anyway, there were two 55-gallon drums in this sunroom, um, one on top of the other. So actually, there were four, and then there were gallon jugs painted black that were filled with water to make a water wall. Okay, up to a point. And so the gallon drums were painted black and filled with water. So we tried different experiments where we didn't put water in the barrels. We just had the barrels. But then it was like, but there wasn't enough um, mass for it to hold. The metal did give off heat into the house. And that's why I got some old, there's an old radiator right here behind me that I got out of Thomas County Schools. But in trying to teach, maybe this is why I'm supposed to be here. I need to teach people a different way to live and still get by and still, I'm comfortable. Now I'm running my little space heater here, but it's on low, and um, and I'm cheating because it was raining out earlier, and it's not going to be too cold tonight. But I'm cheating because my feet was cold. But I could also turn this thing off and put another pair of socks on, uh, walk around a little bit and get the blood flowing and get my feet warm. But um, as far as being cold and having to keep the house at a certain temperature, it ain't anything like that. So when it's 24 below outside, but people are trying to keep their house at 65, think about that. And and the people are like, well, we're not trying to keep it at 70. We're, trying to keep it at 65. Folks need to learn to get by with it when it's cold like that at 60 degrees. And sometimes, if it's really that cold, sometimes 55. If it means sleeping in a pair of long johns and pajama bottoms and double insulate yourself with some good wool socks and, and wrap yourself in one of them, aluminum foil blankets to stay warm. By the way, speaking of which, they used to be $1. Now I think they're 2 or 3, but still, those little emergency blankets. When I was down on the river, went back that time when I saw the ferries, it got down into the 30s that night, and I was in in an open kayak down on the river. It got cold. And I did one of those meditation things while sitting in the middle of the Ocklawaha River, about on the Georgia Florida line, really, really close to it, and having a religious experience and having the fairies singing to me. It was quite interesting. But I realized that I wasn't cold when I stopped. But see, I'd been paddling and doing, and then, but for that 15 or 20 minutes where I was meditating, um, I woke up and was instantly cold. So I had one of those emergency blankets, nice and thin and everything, and tucked it inside my shirt as far as I could one way and all the way around the other way. So, because I didn't want to take my jacket off. Um, but I tucked it in and just, and then zippered my little vest back up. And within a short time, and I had another one that was actually, I think I let it drape down my legs and just kind of tucked it under my calves. And I was warm in no time. So it's like for $2 or $3, and you can fold them back up or wad them up or something and use them over again. It's not like, so my kayaks all, one goes with, because you never know when you're going to get dumped over. Three layers. Yep. Here's something now for those of you folks. Y'all know who Shirley MacLaine is, the actress. Good to see you, Jody. You can't go nowhere, no gas, no pumps. Oh, damn, Chloe. Yeah, he was. Yeah, Duggar will warm you up. You know, now a little bit of trivia, Three Dog Night. One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Two can be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number that's the number one. Brr. Oh, it's a sad experience you'll ever know. But anyway, Three Dog Night meant, guess what? It's so cold outside, it takes three dogs to keep you warm. Three Dog Night. Yeah, it is a good song. It's just no good anymore since you went away. Now I spend my time making rhymes of yesterday. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little stoned. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Happy morning, everybody. But in watching all the dumb shit that's going on in this world and putting on my fuzzy little hat on tonight and doing, cleaning here in the house that should have been done 2 years ago, one of the things that I had to learn, and Michelle, this is a little bit for you. It's for everybody, but don't shake your finger at yourself like, oh, I'm over criticized. Like, um, well, I should have done this 2 years ago. So, and see, and I have mourned over this. God, I don't know what to do with this. And so, but my new thing is it's whatever the change is in the air. I'm like, okay, that's just going. It's just out of here. Bye. But at some point it had a value. And I used to do a lot of puppet making and arts and crafts and stuff like that. I used to, like I got 5 or 6 hot melt glue guns, and I've got tubs full of all kinds of stuff. Old socks, styrofoam balls. I mean, you can, stuff to make a puppet with, stars, things, paper, just all kinds of stuff. Because that's what I used to do. I used to go around to schools or whoever, wherever, and take all my stuff. And if 25 or 30 kids, I mean, we did a thing. We had 6 glue guns going. And so what I would do is I'd show the kids, okay, this is what we're going for. All right. Now y'all do what you want to do, but this is what we're going for. And so let their imaginations go. You give them the basic. So we showed them a basic sock puppet. And one of the simplest things to do is turn a pair of socks inside out. Okay. And take some construction paper or poster board and trace your hand on it, you know, and then down at the bottom, you trace it again, but a little shorter or longer, you know, but that was the whole point. So then you glue one piece here and the other piece here. So when you pull the sock back over it, you've got a mouth. You can pull your hand out and there's still, the puppet's still there because it's got a mouth now. So people were making really tiny mouths and some of them were making really big mouths that were wide and flappy. And then they hot melt glued eyes and antenna and hair and all this kind of stuff. So, but the thing is that I don't do that anymore. But I still have all the stuff, you know what I mean? So I don't want to throw it out. I'm sure that at some point I might be able to give it to someone or, you know, something, right? But at the same time, it's in my way and I don't have a dry place to put it. So I'm moving around some of these things. So, but here lately, it's like, you know, you've been holding on to that. Some of good pieces of material, but you know, like I've got this blue canvas that for some reason I just can't throw it away. You know, it's a really tough blue canvas, and a couple of pieces of it. And for some reason, it reminds me of something that I was going to use it for something. And like tonight, I moved it 4 flipping times. And I was like, but I'm not going to throw it away. It's for whatever reason. Maybe I'm going to make a bag out of it. I don't know. But, you know, anyway. So, but in learning about this, good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. Good night, Ed. Be safe. Stay warm. Tight, long leggings, regular wear. Hey, SD, how are you? $1 in the morning. I've been looking for my harmonicas and I can't find them. And it's like, I had a whole set of harmonicas and I've been wanting to play the blues. So the next time I go into Moultrie, I need to go by the pawn shop. Actually, I should call them and see if they have any in stock. Jeffrey Allen, how frostbitten. That's a good one. And to follow that up, Jeffrey, frostbitten. You know, they've been giving us the cold shoulder, frozen in time. You know. Anyway, so but I was thinking, you know, that and other channels that I was thumbing through today are making the same remarks. You know, um, for those of us who kind of made a life choice, you know, how I live is damn sure a life choice. You know, it's going to have people reconsidering what they consider, you know, like, well, this is what I want. Really? Okay. Maybe you should plan a little better, you know. For example, a Coleman lantern. Now you know what a Coleman stove is, but a Coleman lantern, one that you know used to use white gas, but now they've got them with propane. Uh, that you turn one of them suckers on, it gives off heat, it gives off light, and if you crack a window, it's not going to kill you. You know, but it's, you know, if you take precautions. but it will bring heat and it will bring light. So you get a 2-for-1 there. But people are going with batteries on everything, and I'm like, yeah, okay. But there are small propane heaters that you can get. I mean, really small little bathroom ones. They don't use much gas. I've got 3 or 4 20-pound tanks. There's probably 2 out there in the shed, and I need to get one refilled, but I got 3 or 4 tanks of gas, just in case. So, not that I'm paranoid, but if I need it for anything, and I've got a couple of old heaters that somebody gave me, and I've got some fire brick, and I kind of throw it together, but um, it will keep you from freezing. Get it the smallest room you can and stay there. Don't worry about the rest of the house. Um, Somebody was discussing this, and boy, that's true. They don't have any water, right? Because the pumps are down, some of the pipes are frozen, and so people have been having issues with, what are they doing with their dump, right? And so it's like, man, so there are some folks that are going to reconsider, even if this only happens once every few years. Uh, the simple fact is that it's here. So right now it's sprinkling outside. The river's at about 16 feet, a foot over flood. All the rivers down here are either a foot or two above, or just at, or a foot. I don't think any of them. Well, there's one creek a little further north that's slightly under flood, but slightly, like 6 inches. Like 14 feet, and it's like 13 and a half. But we're going to have more rain early this morning and into tomorrow to add to this. And they're talking about more flash flood. Well, all this has got to go south through Florida, right? And the Apalachicola River at Bluntstown is flooding, and that's a big river. But north of Bluntstown, the Seminole, there's a big lake on Alabama, Florida, and Georgia down there, Lake Seminole. I think that's it. Anyway, a lot of water comes through there, and but the water doesn't go there. It goes straight on down towards Panacea, where Ochlockonee Bay is, Alligator Point down there. But when I was reading the charts yesterday or the other day or whatever it was, I was, my brain in wonderment was stuck on how many cubic feet of water was moving, right? And it was over 7,000 cubic feet per minute. I'm sorry, per second. So that's how many gallons per second? Well, that's 7 times 7, because there's 7.5 pounds, 7.5 gallons in a cubic foot of water. So 7,000 feet per second, cubic feet. How many gallons? Times 7, 49,000 gallons of water every second. 50,000 gallons if you round it up where it's supposed to be. 50,000 gallons of water. No, and people don't have water. It just sounds so bizarre, and I'm wondering to myself, if there's a lot of snow out there, why aren't people melting snow for water? Why aren't they filtering that and taking some snow? It's ice. So, but folks are having issues with like potty situations where they can't flush the commode. So, what do you do when you're in a snow blizzard and you got to take a dump? So, here's one of the things that people should understand: you don't eat as much. And you go, well, why, Mr. Dave? Because they don't have to poop as much. I'm sorry, but that's how it goes. You go into a not necessarily a fast, but instead of having 2 eggs and bacon, you have 1 egg and maybe a piece of toast. You know, you cut things in half. If it's below zero or it's below freezing, and a lot of places are below zero. I was in Chicago when it was 45 below, and with the wind chill. So I've been in really, really cold weather. Don't like it. Used to live in Ohio, moved down south, you know. So, but people who choose to live there then should figure out a way to live there, and they should prepare in whatever way is necessary. So I was listening to a guy that, he's in New York City now, and he grew up in Tampa, went to the rival, Jesuit high school down there versus Tampa Catholic. And he was talking to me. He said back in 1977 or somewhere back in there, he said it snowed in Tampa. And he said, it was like, 10 pieces of paper thick, but it snowed. And people were so elated. And I remember that. That was either 77 or 78. That was when we had a blizzard that went through up there in Berlin, Georgia, where I was living. We like to froze to death in that house. I could not get enough firewood, and I mean it was cold. But to the point, I remember them days, and it snowed in Berlin, and there was snow on the ground for a week. And we didn't lose electricity, but space heater didn't work in that big old house that we lived in. But and I just was not prepared with enough firewood. Um, but we didn't die. We stayed snuggled up in a small room. But we were used to it, I guess. My wife at the time came from uh, her daddy was a sharecropper. I never knew you made the puppets. Oh yeah, yeah, Chloe. I've got 150 puppets in my collection, and most of them I've made or friends of mine have made. Based on characters or situations. But I can't get them out now because they take up too much room, and that's what I'm doing. So my alternatives, my old school bus out there is where I used to put all the puppet stuff, but it's developed a leak. It needs cleaned out. And, I need to put that on my list because some of the things that are in here should go back out to the bus. I brought them in from the bus a couple of years ago, probably 4 or 5 now, when I got my brain scrambled. And I walking back and forth to the bus out there is ain't that far, but and it was too hot in the summertime and too cold in wintertime. And I was like, I'm bringing it in the house, and I set myself up here in the house, and I brought too much crap in my house. So I'm in the process of cleaning out the bus, getting it, fixed back up, so I can take all these arts and craftsy stuff out. You know, put it in I got to remake a dry condition in there in the bus and put the stuff out there. But anyway, uh, but by doing that, you see, then that gives me room to be able to bring the puppets up and set it up in here the way I used to. You know, uh, Overhead is where the loft is right now, and I used to hang the puppets from the loft. And so all I had to do was just reach over, grab the puppet, and then be able to do this thing here on the floor. So one of my issues was having enough um, depth of field for the cameras that I was using to try to videotape it. And there's really good natural light in here during the day. I haven't seen it, Jeffrey. Yeah, a lot of stuff coming out of the sky. There was a lady, I think, in Spain. The lady from Spain. Clack, 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 clack. Anyway, um, went over on her balcony and took a bunch of white snow and packed it up like this. And you thought, "Ooh, look what she's doing. She's making a snowball." She sews it to the camera like this and turns it. She takes out her lighter and it catches the bottom on fire. Um, but anyway, yeah, I got hurt too bad and lost, got my brain scrambled. And, anybody that volunteers to go to a neurologist, I should do a separate video about this. But since I'm just yakking right now, um, anybody that goes to a neurologist and goes through the flickering eye thing to see if they'll make you have a seizure is like saying, here, lie down on this bed of nails that's attached to a rack or Iran, either one. I would ran from the rack, but um, that's stretching some humor right there. But yink, sort of like a big elastic rubber band. I never moved, bid me farewell. Oh, no, you're not the only starfish in the sea. All I want to is all the same to me. Yeah, I think it'll be all right. Like a red rubber ball. Um, oh, yeah, that's normal. There are times, though, Jeffrey, down here in South Georgia, where late at night I'll go outside. I go in and out of the house all the time between me and Duggar having to pee. But also I want to see where the stars are and everything. And we're in a really interesting. Um, I haven't talked about Earth wobble in a while, but I've been noticing that um, it's been about 3 weeks ago, and I think I mentioned it in one of the videos I was doing, that Orion who had been setting in the southwest sky where it's not supposed to. But here recently, now we have had a lot of cloud cover. But I went outside last night. Duggar was running around barking. I had to chase him up the driveway. Clear and cold, great sky, and Orion was way up overhead instead of being down in the southwestern. So we had dipped away, I guess, and Orion was setting further south. And we have tilted back so that Orion's more overhead. And a lot of other folks, science people and stuff, are talking about the Earth wobble and how much. And there's one channel that was talking about how it slowed down and sped up. Now, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but my experiments right here in my house proved to me that the Earth was speeding up and slowing down, and that it was wobbling because simple observation. Yeah, Jeffrey. You just need to, pick one of the simplest things to make, and and the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts kind of thing was to make a sundial, you know, and you took a protractor and you marked off, the different things, and it's all mathematical, and you make a sundial. Really simple to do, right? So, and all you have to do is check it to your watch every day and see how good see how close you are. And basically, that's what I did. And for a year and a half, I tracked it. And one day it would be 9 o'clock by the sun, but only 8 o'clock by the clock. And then 2 days later, it'd be the other way around. It'd be, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning, the sun wouldn't even be, it'd be 7:30, by the clock. Uh, yeah, it's like a 58 or 59 old school bus. And it's been on the property for years and years and years. I mean, we had it cleaned out to where some folks were living in it here on the property way back when. And there's still enough there to salvage. It's old and rusty, but I got some old paint and a little bit of spray paint and this and that. But the other thing is that it's not really rusted through so much. Um, I put tar all over it, and so it's the color of roofing tar. And there's some old aluminum paneling on it that was covered. They took it and turned it into a camper. My friend Martha, who's in the hospital, um, it was her family's, and they sold it to a friend of mine who moved out here and was homesteading with me. And I just basically didn't charge him anything for electricity or anything like that. And so he fixed the bus up. And then about 8 months later, things just got really strange and strained. Uh, he wouldn't go anywhere, and all he would do is was play video games. And I mean, seriously, a grown man with two kids. And his wife said, either we move into town or I'm leaving you, or I'm going to move into town, because she was supporting them all. But anyway, so they left the bus here. And so I've converted it. It used to be a grow room. Oh my God, the weed, pounds of weed we grew in that school bus. But then when I got busted, I dismantled everything. And then I turned it into a puppet workshop. So the puppets, I could hang them from the ceiling easy and work on them, workbench in there with paints and stuff and carving tools and all that kind of stuff. So, but a couple of years ago, like I said, I couldn't, when I was in the wheelchair kind of thingy and couldn't walk, I hauled all that stuff in here, and you know now it's in my way. But it's amazing that I can look back on 5 or 6 years ago, going on 7, and they say every 7 years, everything changes within you. Every 7 years, and so I don't know what cycle I would be on, but the fact that 5 or 6 years ago I really drooling out both sides of my mouth and couldn't think straight. I have trouble now, but that's because I'm stoned. Um, oh, smoke if you got them. But the rules have changed so much now to where they're passing laws that people can't live in a motorhome on a property, you know. And so I have several friends that used to have trailers on them, and there'd be a slab for a porch or the trailer, and sometimes a shed or a porch that used to be there. But people would take a travel trailer, and that's how I started out here, was with a travel trailer and built the house off the side of it. And you know, been through some serious times. I mean, that tornado that went over the house in '80. Well, Bob and Linda were here then. I mean, Bob was here at the house with me the night of the tornado. And that was just something, boy, let me tell you. But my house has survived 2 tornadoes, but the barn up on the hill has gotten torn down twice. Same tornado, but I'm still here, and they had to rebuild that shed twice. I would have moved that son of a biscuit eater. I would have moved it 20 feet down there. I would have done something. It was sort of like the world according to Garp. And it was like, how many times would this happen to, would an airplane crash into the house or something? And then they said, yeah, so they bought the house, and not too long, much longer after that, a plane flew into their house. It was like, what? But anyway, I'm having all these weird songs come up into my head. In regards to a sundial, my relative told me you had to set it up at a specific time of year in order for her to match, or does it matter the direction you have it facing? The sun's going to do what the sun's going to do, okay, but it needs to be set up with a compass, north, south, east, and west. So you put it on an east-west line, and that's your line. And where you set it up, it's east and west. So because the sun, that's why passive solar works. The sun comes in low, but it always comes up from the east and sets in the west. So as long as your 6 o'clock positions, if you will, are pointed east and west, and literally you can take a piece of wood like about this big, okay, and take a protractor, one of the rounded protractor. I used to have one hanging. I have been cleaning up. You would be so proud, but now I can't find it. But anyway, take a plastic protractor and draw an arc, all right? And at the center point of that, drill a little hole or put in a nail, okay? That's all you really need. And on a little board, and set it up facing south. And mark your halfway point, 90 degrees, east and west, set it up. And you can watch the nail will tell there, pick a large nail with a head on it, so it'll make a shadow. You don't have to tilt it. But the problem with that in the summertime, though, is the sun straight overhead. It won't cast the same shadow as it will right now at this time of the year. But that would be at the summer solstice. Yeah, summer solstice. Yeah, the other is to cut a triangle, an easy triangle, and set it up so that when, at 12 o'clock, there's only a line, but then as it moves, it makes a bigger shadow. It's easier to tell time. But anyway, they're not hard to do. A stick pounded in the ground and marked out, if there was some Mexican movie or something where the guy took a stick and he said, you see this, senor, when the sun gets over to here, and he was using, I think, his crotch or something as and he was watching the shadow. He said, then it will be time for you to die, senor. It's like, whoa. But anyway, but to the point, all you need is a stick on the ground. But anyway, there are certain things, like the Indians knew that, simply because of their observations. So if they, I've been out in Wyoming and Montana out there, there's not a lot of trees, right? But if you know which way your teepee's pointed, literally, and you can twist it if you want, but knowing where your teepee is, and you will have figured out where south is. So regardless of any landmarks, you will have figured it out over a couple of weeks where the east is and where the west is and where high noon is. Okay. So then your teepee can be, the back of the teepee can become the sundial. Okay. So it's like native peoples were very observant. So what time of day it is? Well, it's the sun's overhead. It must be, lunchtime. you know. Yeah, I mean, and I've gotten really good about it too, here at the house because I have, my house is south facing, and so um, at any point I walk outside, I'm facing south. So if the sun's hitting me a little bit on this cheek, it's still morning, or if it's hitting me on this cheek, it's going into evening. So in that respect, I was going through some of my stuff when I had made this thing back. I think Brian and I did a show, a couple of years back, but I was talking about the science of observation and how important it is to just be aware, like the sundial and like the this and that, right? And we were talking about how I was, discussing the same thing we're talking about now. But it still has, the science, that simple science hasn't changed. And in the last couple of years, since I've actually, you know, done a show on the subject, I had it wrote out on a card, and I had this and this and this and this. Anyway, so I was going back over it in my head and I was going, yeah, yeah, all of that stuff is still valid. But what the interesting thing is that mainstream science is, I don't know if they've been checking the sundial or not, but imagine the folks in the observatories who have seen this stuff move, and they have had to have signed a non-disclosure agreement, because if we can visually see the Orion's overhead tonight, whoops, it's down over there tomorrow night, something's up. Mi amigos and mi amigas, friends, por favor. But so to the native peoples, and I keep referring to that, is because people nowadays, you know, they got their head, like, what's that? Yeah, okay. And they got earbuds in. Well, what's that? Yeah, okay, they're reading their little box, And I know you have, see, I got a cell phone, but it isn't activated, and I'd have to get a SIM card and all that, and blah blah blah. But someone was telling me that it might be good if I had those because of the GPS in case I was down on the river. Like I I could see having a cheap phone for that, but I don't want nothing to watch movies or nothing. But the GPS locator. Where's Uncle Dave? Let's see. Let me type in his number, and you know, so it's sort of like, instead of paying you know, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. But the older I get, I'm not I'm not worried about it, but I gotta also say I need to be practical. you know, I don't want a bracelet. I'm not using a walker yet, although I have lots of different walking sticks. And here's something just off topic on all of this stuff. The dial has a tilt for winter. It shouldn't. Okay. Um, no, what changes is on the sundial itself. It's just the shape of the shadow. So if you've ever been to a gardens that has a sundial, it'll be this big thing on a concrete pedestal that doesn't move, and they don't tilt it. It doesn't, but it always tells time. So it just changes the length of the shadow from summertime overhead to wintertime down low. So, but anyway, um, in observing the universe like the sundial and checking your watch, in observing where you live and observing, like right now, people are realizing, oh holy shit, we're in blizzard conditions here, and we've been screwed, holy crap. um so they tore out all the coal heaters and the old coal. We had a coal oil, which was basically kerosene, and you know I don't know if it might have been a 100-gallon drum up on stilts. It was gravity fed into the heater, into the house when we lived in Florida. And of course, it was piped throughout the house, but it dripped in, you know. And we'd call the guy out, and he'd bring back up to the side and bring the hose around, and we'd fill the thing with kerosene. Now, they didn't have to get, filled up very often, but back then kerosene was like a nickel a gallon. Now it's $5 a gallon. And that's the cheap places, right? So, but anyway, um, but lots of folks had those kind of heaters. Now, I don't know, a lot of folks have, gone to the new super duper, um, heat pump. Well, if you don't have electricity, that heat pump ain't doing you nothing, right? Chloe, it's just practice when you're outside. Like about if I'm on the river, the observation about what time it is, and you pick a reference point and you observe it and you go, okay, so I'm headed down the river, which I know is south. Okay, so I've already established a direction. Now it curves around, it goes a little east, goes a little west, but basically I'm going south. So when you know where you are in relationships, so if you don't know which side of your house is facing, your front door or your back door, so as soon as you orientate yourself as to where you are, what direction does your street go? Is it an east-west or a north-south street? You know what I mean? So in Native Americans and Native peoples, you just get up every day and you just, well, there's a sun. I got up to had to go pee. There it is over there. Whether they knew it was the east or west, that's what was passed down through oral traditions. So that must be the east. That's the waking. Sun's going to sleep in the west. Okie dokie. So, and if I'm peeing to the south, well, then east, west, I know where I am. Yep, exactly. Exactly, Elderberry. Yep. We have much in common, my friend. I listen to you in the chat rooms. Yes, I do. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette. I only got a couple left. And I've been not nursing them, just not caring. What if I run out? I got tobacco. Yeah, okay. So, Chloe, if you're out, um, gracias. if you're out in Texas and you're out, or I got kinfolk up in Ohio, and they're snowed in too. So it's when I left Ohio in 1959. It was January. Well, actually, it was 58, 50, going into 59 when we moved to Tampa from Dayton, and the second story window, it was banked between the houses, and the you could open up the window. You had to reach out, but you could touch the snow. And we left there and headed south, um, towards the swamps of Tampa. But yeah, alligators in the front yard. That was a fun time that year. But the idea though that they all talk about how bad the snow is, but none of them moved out of it still. And I know I'm the oldest of the brood, but I'm sorry, y'all bitch every year about the snow. Now, folks in Texas now, but I was looking at where the snow pattern is, and it's snowing further south in latitude than where I'm located right now. So if that whole system moved over, Tampa would get snow. We'd be snowed in here, and it has snowed here before. So it's not unheard of. But whatever that warm air mass is, there's something going on down in Mexico. And I think you want to hear my theory about the earth changes? Here we go. Um, there has been a lot of volcanic activity off the coast of Guatemala. Okay. And I talked about a couple of years ago when I saw it just before it happened, as I was looking at Google Earth, went to sleep, woke up, and they'd had that huge volcano erupt and killed all those people in the valley that I was looking at on Google Earth just before I went to sleep. It still freaks me out because I could see them getting torched, if you will. And it happened just a couple hours after I visualized it anyway. So there's a lot of air masses that are coming way off of the Pacific, up through Mexico and across and up and up and up and right on across. And I don't remember when those jet streams were like that. So the Gulf, the way it moves, so lots of warmer air there, it's obviously going to kick up moisture. It Summertime, wintertime, doesn't matter. It's just the way um, the the natural cycles of the planet are. Well, but so what's the natural cycle? I believe that it's because of all the eruptions down from Mexico, the Pacific plate down in there, all the way, into is it Uruguay and Paraguay, Colombia, Panama down there. So a lot of activity, and I think it's because the ocean waters are warming more than normal, which is which would normally just be Pacific water. I think that there's a lot of underground, heat coming up through the ocean, and that's what's changing the paradigm down there. So, because when you watch that jet stream coming up out of the south and from Mexico, where's that shit coming from? Where's that warm air coming from? A lot of activity along the peninsula down there. I've been watching it for years. I just don't bring it up anymore. But now with these weather changes, people, well, it's weather modification. Could be. Haven't seen near as much spraying as it used to. I think things have just not necessarily gone awry with that, but Um, they can bounce things off the atmosphere, absolutely. But if you just look at the cloud patterns, what the hell's going on down there on the western side of South America and in there that's causing all that warm air to come up out of the Pacific? What's going on? So it's simple. If we look at the volcanoes and the earthquakes, and that there are underground volcanoes that are producing heat and stuff from the ocean floor. So this is changing weather patterns. And it's thousands of miles, from the equator all the way up to us. It's really strange. And it's like, has kept this pattern for a while. So what's the deal, Schmiel? If the Earth rotates a little bit and that jet stream moves a little further south into Florida instead of coming up towards Alabama and Georgia, we'd be getting snow, you know? But it has snowed here before. Not like, well, I take that back. It snowed a bunch of people in back about the same time we got snow in Tampa that year. But I was here in 77, not on this property, but I was up here in Georgia in 77, 78. Um, and it has snowed twice here on my property, maybe 3 times. Didn't stick. We got some really great big giant flakes one time. I'm in Austin, and our largest water treatment plant has lost power because of the tundra-like temperatures. I believe it, Jeffrey. I tried Google exactly that. Where did it come from? You guys should try to see, where did what come from? The warm air, you mean? Now, I want you to understand, I absolutely believe they're using, weather warfare on us. But when you just look at the clouds naturally, and listen to the earthquakes, the freaking chaos of the clouds or chemtrails, I should say. Yeah. But my point to that is I think there's more to it than just that. Okay. Um, Cliff High did a really good presentation the other day, um, called Sunwoo. And he was describing what's happening with the earth right now, what's happening with the sun right now. And because the sun its magnetic shield is smaller, galactic particles are coming by that don't normally hit us. If you think of the a boat pushing in the water and it pushes out this way, the faster you go, it'll make it. Well, anyway, it's really narrow. So there are particles coming from the universe, literally, that are coming around the sun and hitting the earth, which we don't normally get. It's changing everything. So yeah, I think they're messing with us. Or well, yeah, this idea that folks think that the earth is going to flip upside down. I have thought about it, and I'm thinking about the centrifugal force of the earth spinning. Okay. So here's a question to ponder. Has anybody weighed themselves at a higher altitude? Do they weigh more at 10,000 feet than they do at sea level? Just a curiosity. Um, so this thing about gravity, Yes, a lot of stuff. Do you see those spikes that come across? Those streaks that show up on the radar. One of our local guys was there was this really odd pattern. I was like, nah, they're using some kind of device. And he said, is that a flock of birds? And I was like, holy Jesus. And I was like, no, but so many people call the local Tallahassee station. He was like, are those a flock of birds? Because it was really obvious what was showing up on the radar. Anyway, yeah, that's birds, buddy. Sure. Yeah, it's if you look about now, I'm saying if this 4D transition is really happening, okay, as the prophets of old have said, we're picking up energies and things that we don't normally pick up. And we're in a different, the Chinese calendar and how old it is, and it's the new year and everything like that. We just had Fat Tuesday, and now Catholics are going through the 6 weeks of Lent or whatever before is it 6 weeks? Anyway, all the things we used to give up. As a random curiosity, is there any truth that the Earth has the ability on the occasion to change its magnetic field position? It is changing. There's an anomaly in the South Atlantic off the coast of South America. I don't know if it's Chile, but anyway, Argentina, off the coast of Argentina, and it's a magnetic anomaly. And it's the Earth, and scientists have been watching it, going, "What the hell is going on?" And they have warned ships away from the area to steer clear of it. Planes don't fly over that area, and it's not necessarily like the Bermuda Triangle, but there are uh, magnetic fluctuations in that area that they can't explain, and it mucks with everything. So they have told people to stay out of that area. And it's a big area down in the South Atlantic, you know, and kind of sort of been keeping an eye on that. But the idea that Mother Earth is has a solid core, I went with that science for a long time, and now I understand that that just isn't true. But the idea, though, that all of the magma in the Earth is wants to be slung towards the surface, I mean, what is a centrifuge, right? You put stuff in and it spins around really quick and it separates stuff, right? So the Earth is spinning. That's without a doubt. It happens because the stars in the background change, right? So, and the sun comes up and goes down every day. But to be able to stop the planet from spinning, the amount of force it would take to slow the planet down that much. The wobble effect is simple because things are wobbling around, and so it takes a little while, and when it catches up, it speeds up a little bit, So it's sort of like not a concentric circle. Anyway, it's sort of almost like an oval. And they've told us for years that the Earth is like a top doing this little dance. So I think the dance has just increased, where that if you think about a spinning top, the kind that you put a string on and spin, right, and watch it, it'll stay spinning really good, and then the bottom will start doing this stuff. Yeah, the magnetic pole has been moving towards Russia for a bunch of years. So, and the magnetic has nothing to do with the North Pole in relationship to the stars. But You know, there are videos of the native Eskimos that live up there in the tundra up there in igloos, and they go, the sun used to come up over there at, this time of year. Now it comes up over there. Something's up, right? So native peoples have been watching it, because they observe it every day in their life. So there have been folks that are aware that Earth is going through changes, where it was stable before. But if the sun has it's like a corona, big magnetic shield kind of thing, is smaller. So all this extra energy is kind of coming out around the sun, and we're getting hit by stuff that ain't related to the sun, but the sun used to block from us. And we're in some areas that I'm sure the Earth has been here before. We haven't been here presently or the last 100 years. But I remember there was a cold spell in the 50s. I remember there was a cold spell in the 60s too. And I remember a cold spell in the 70s. I mean, it's like every 10 years or so, there's a really, big cold snap. Like every few years, there's a really big flood. Well, it's raining now again. So, Jeffrey says, probably an ancient Stargate or portal. They're all over the planet. Yeah, some of them are bigger than others. Some of them are just, now, if you go back to the science, and there's a part of me that just wants to believe it. And here's why I say this. Do any of you remember the Fox series called Fringe? Now, I have searched, there are all kinds of different older series coming out, Magnum PI, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Dragnet, you name it. But Fringe is nowhere to be seen. I typed it out. You can hear about it, but there are no episodes. Now, if any of you ever watched Fringe and understood what they were doing, they had made basically a hallway between the two dimensions. And you went into a closet sort of thing, opened the door, walked down the hallway, and when you got to the other side, you were in the alternate dimension. And so I can't remember his name, but he was the guy that has talked about, the jump rooms to Mars, where basically you do the same thing. You walk through one door and go through a small area and open the next one, and you're there. And there are different mediums on that. So it's like would a portal have to be like charged up, or is the mathematics of the universe simply enough to where you just have to create the right conditions, not necessarily a Stargate per se. But the Stargates are for driving trucks through, you know what I mean? Where these little mini ones, to your point, where they have them all over, that you can just go from here to there. Now, this is an interesting thing that you bring up there. Who brought that up? Jeffrey. Okay, Jeffrey. Keeping it classified. Yep. When I was in Ohio at the petroglyphs there, the night that I was there and taking pictures and everything, there was an indentation in the rock where all these drawings and pictures are. And I kept looking at this indentation, and they said it's a jump room, it's a jump seat. And I was like, what? Now, I was discussing this with a being who told me how to make the settings on the camera, and all that. I got to find those pictures. But I did a video of it, I think, and I could share the screen back then. But I haven't been able to figure it out now with all the changes. But so this being said, it's a jump seat. If you sit in that seat, and I did, I crawled over the fence. It was like 2 a.m. I crawled over the fence and put my little fanny in this little indentation in the rock that's there. Ancient, right? So I'm sitting there, and this being is telling me that if you say the right words, you will go to another place that's like this. So I could travel halfway around the country, or, and maybe I could go to Arizona or to some mesa or something. But if I knew, quote, what the magic word was and thought about the other location where I was headed, that I would just be there in the other place. And I was like, in my head, I'm talking to this being and I'm going, now that sounds really flippin' cool. So that it sort of tied, from what I understood, it's sort of tied to the fairy realm. And when I say fairy realm, it includes little people and little, not all bad nasties, but and not just fairies, but the fairy realm, little folk. Okay, the whole business, and that's how they travel. They know from one point where they're at, and they want to go someplace else. They somehow, it might be a certain place in the woods that they go, for example. And from that point, they can think of another location and just go there. So the elves and folks that, the small folk, the wee folk, um, that's how they can travel so quickly, from place to place without literally having to run with their tiny little feet. It's like they'll never get there. Oh my God, just it would take them an eon to get from my house to Thomasville, with their tiny little feet. But anyway, in saying that though, I have been in places in the woods that had an energy that you just couldn't explain. And I mean, a good energy, and it's almost like when you stood there, you could feel yourself in another place. I mean, it's like, wow, I'm sitting down here. Maybe I'm on the bank of the river or I'm out in the woods. There were places like that up in the mountains that I found, and I was drawn to them. And so, not necessarily ley lines, but tiny little hot spots all over the place. Down in the caves and climax, you're 100 so feet under below the surface and a mile back in the cave. And there's just this sense of something, not ominous, but it's just there in the tea room. There, I found a website. I should save it or something, but it showed the different locations, and I was like, yeah. And all the places were named right, and it was like, yeah, the tea room. We used to put a candle up there, and the climax caves. So they mapped it better because they had equipment. We just mapped it by squiggling, and we had a rope, and uh, a friend of mine would crawl forward, would say, okay, 10 feet, okay, 10 feet, 10 feet. I'd catch up to him. So we kept track of how far we were going, and that's how, But anyway, there are energy places all around. And if we find them, if we feel drawn to these places, like certain places on the river that I go to, you're just drawn to them and you don't know why. With meditation or whatever, if you knew, quote, what the magic word was, that you could go to another location, another one of those hot spots. So having had that experience and having that the experience, having lived through the last 6 or 7 years with that knowledge, and my own understanding of, special places, uh, why not? You know, is that fourth into fifth, or is that third into fourth? I'm thinking it's kind of third into fourth, but that's what's going to, in my humble opinion, I think that's what's going to freak a lot of people out. Because to peek into the other realms, and go, you mean there really are, a group of folk called the little people, yes, oh my God, some people are just going to freak out, and that, you mean they've been right here the whole time? Yeah, think about, Rip Van Winkle, okay? So they brought him some beer and took him into this place, and he slept for 20 years, was it, or something like that? So then he woke up out of the fairy realm, and he had a long beard and the whole 9 yards. So some of those tales, okay, where did he get the idea of the story? Somewhere along the line, I would bet you there's some truth to the legend of, um, Rip Van Winkle, okay? Because whether in a dream or whether in a something, it's usually hearsay, folklore. Somebody hears a something, something, and he writes it down as Rip Van Winkle and puts it into a story, right? But if folks, back then, and it used to be until, people just started, massacring Mother Earth, the wee ones have moved. A lot of places they've relocated and refused to, want to talk to humans. But about a year or so ago, there was some information out that the war between the fairy realm and the human realm was now over, because there are enough people who are waking up that the fairy folk are going, we've waited a long time for you people to wake up, because there's so many. So when the overpopulation started, the wee folk just disappeared. They went deeper into the woods. So the insight with some of that was with my trip on the Ochlockonee with the water sprites, and the songs that they sang, and uh, information that was just being relayed. It was really odd. Um, I think it's Sliders where there's like this smoke. Anyway, it was similar going through the fog with the light and everything, and the way things were swirling. It was almost like I was being. I went through a trans-dimensional place. When I knew I was on the water, I knew I was paddling because I had to paddle upstream. But seeing, being shown the fairy realm by themselves because of the fog, um, their dancing rhythms and the melodies that they sang, and I think about it now, and I'm just like tickled to death, happy all over kind of thing. So they were singing joy, but not everyone will hear them. I couldn't believe my own ears. And I was like, that's when I had to stop on the river and go, okay, am I seeing things? So when I meditated on it, um, I'm sitting there going, in the middle of the Ochlockonee River, because there was a log jam. In the middle of the Ochlockonee River at like 4 in the morning, I'm having conversations with water sprites, you know. Oh, holy crap. But because I had had conversation with the entity and all the sphere beings in Ohio several years ago, I had to accept, because I had pictures, you know, in Ohio, from Ohio, of all these spheres around me, orbs. And so I had to believe, because if I believed that, then why wouldn't I believe this? So on my meditation, I was like, you know, it's a stretch, right? But as I floated back, I didn't float because I had to paddle back upstream. But as I paddled back upstream, like I've said before, I came close to bumping into a log, but I never bumped into anything. Anything overhead, they told me to steer. They did these twirly things in the fog on the water. Oh my God, it was so amazing. So it's like I did, you know, and I'd never been on that stretch of river before. And I had like 5 feet maybe of like visual. I could barely see past the end of the kayak. So this idea, though, that had I not allowed myself to believe it and experience it, you know, I would have missed it. Just out the window. So there are times when, you know, I don't discuss this all the time, but what makes me believe that this stuff is true? Why do I believe so strongly in what I believe? It's because I've allowed myself to accept and receive. I accept that these beings could exist, and I receive the message or their song that they're singing. Wow. And then the blessings and the wisdom are all attached to that. It's starting to rain pretty hard now. But anyway, so not to harp on this, but my experiences, and I talk about them, you know, again and again, probably maybe too much, but it's to emphasize how important this is, you know. Now I know that I've chose this path, but for all of you out there, every day is a different day. Every day is an opportunity to open up to, you know, and see, just stay out of the evil stuff. When I'm down in the woods or something, I know I've got my observation aura on, and whatever it is out there, I'm going to be aware of it. But I'm assured enough without too much ego, because I've gotten my ass kicked before by spirits, that if I walk in the light as a shaman, as just a person, if I walk in the light, then the dark entities are going to go, I just don't want to go mess with them. But if your energy's kind of flickering and a little, can light actually get dark, you know? They sense it. So ever since I had the 3 days on the river when the spirits took me off, I have realized, oh, guess what? There's a whole lot more to this. You know, I mean, I can literally survive in the swamp underneath a palmetto bush in a ditch without water or food for 3 days and not die. So when you accept that, when you accept that the spirits took care of you, when you have heard and taken pictures of orbs that are talking about jump seats, you have the experience of seeing the water sprites. It's hard not to believe. You know, last night the UFOs back down here in the south again, very flickery, and down there in the south where it usually pops up. Could have been there the whole time, but it's been cloudy, you know, but was very bright and very sparkly last night. I wished I could get a decent, zoom in of it. And so I could show it to y'all. But anyway, there are pictures on, lots of channels of this like thing changing, almost looks like a, two, I can't, octahedron, with a point on either end. Anyway, and lots of colors and looks like it's flickering, flashing. And a lot of people mistake them as stars, and they're not, because there are, when you look at the star charts, there aren't any stars that big in that area of the sky. And so, but if you don't know your sky, you know, and there's lots of programs where you can, I check it all the time, but in my lifetime, I've been watching the stars since I was a Cub Scout, right? And 7 or 8 years old. And consequently, I would wake up in the middle of the night, and especially in the wintertime, and for no reason, look out the window and could see the constellation Pleiades. And I always wondered all my life, why did them folks wake me up in the middle of the night to look out the window and see this little star cluster? So it's always fascinated me, but I had to give it up as far as being fascinated with that star cluster. Don't get me wrong, I still watch it, that kind of thing, but there's so much misinformation about the Pleiadians. And we have to understand that when you look in that star cluster, there's not just seven sisters. There's a crap load of stuff in that little, in an area of the sky like that. So when you say Pleiadian, which one? It'd be like saying, well, I'm an earthling. Yeah, but from where? What do you mean? Well, are you from Africa? Why? I have white skin. I'm from South Africa. But yes, well then, wait a minute. You have white Africans? Yeah. Well, we have black Americans. Okay. And what? So, not every Canadian is Snow White, you know, in color or in unless they're asleep. But the idea though that so how does this matter in the universe? Well, I recently, and I kind of keep divulging this information, and I'm gonna throw it in here right now just because. Damn, I missed 420. Crap. The alien stuff. The alien book. Now, for those of you, Jody, if you're still here, um, Dante had his last name is Santori. Dante has had a channel, DSAHK. It's now called The Cause, and they republished a lot of the older videos. And I've had a chance to go back through some of them and reacquaint myself with, the things that I watched 3 or 4 or 5, 6. I've been following Dante for quite a while now. And he has switched channels, switched channels, switched channels. I knew him back when his channel was Dante Santori. So the thing is, there was a lot of stuff that he said that I was just like, I just can't believe this shit. I'm not going to believe it. But over the 6 or 7 years, at least, okay, probably longer than that, I've noticed things in the world. I've noticed things like the signs that they put in the movies, like why isn't Fringe out there? Why can't we watch old episodes of Fringe? We can see all these other stuff, all these other sci-fis. Why aren't they putting Fringe back out there? And the theory is that they're going to put Fringe out there, which was done on Fox, sort of like, the X-Files. But there was so much truth in the idea of Fringe. She used to go into this isolation chamber, right? And go into this thing and could jump consciousness into the other dimension. So we have to stop and scratch our head and go, there was a lot of technical data that I can't recall, but I mean, I remember the, the tank and the this and the that and the door, and they had trouble at first. And, one Walter swiped the sun from another dimension and brought him to this side and all this stuff. But anyway, so the idea that there's kidnapping from a parallel universe, and that was sort of what Fringe was about, and how they and the other side, they were sort of like the Nazis, right? Really bad. And there were peace agreements between our dimension and theirs, so um one has to speculate. And I was speculating way back when Fringe was on the air. I was like, what the hell are they showing us? Star Trek showed us outer space. Fringe showed us dimensional space. Now there's sliders, and there was, different ones like that. There's another one, Quantum Leap. Okay, so they're leaping in time. They're sliding through time. But Fringe is not talking about going through time, but breaking the barrier, CERN, anyone, to a parallel universe. So was CERN and some of this stuff in order to peek into that other universe like Fringe was talking about? And, are there folks in the other dimension trying to get at us this way? You know what I mean? So we think about fractures in timelines. We think about, things were headed in this direction and now the timeline has changed. But what if not just the timeline has changed, but the parallel universe kind of thing attached to it, because here lately, I mean, there's just stuff flittering by around me back and forth. I don't know if anybody's seen any orbs flying around. It just seems like there's a different feel in the air. And I don't mean plastic snow, but energy wise. And even though the guy that I wanted to be the prez, you know how that's going. I should be scared to death, what these people are planning and all that. But here's the thing. Many of us have known they've been planning this all along. So why get our panties in a bunch? Edna, I heard you out there. So, but at the same point, there is there is a truth in there. How much of it and how extensive it is. But in talking about the alien factor, the woo part of this, we have to understand that these folks have been here a long time. We have been tinkered with, messed with. Now, I think in a previous video, I was talking about the different types. There's the Mater or the Matre, depends on how you want to pronounce it. There's the Vlash that are very much the V's in the series V. Now, my point to that is you can find V on some of these back channels, on Roku, but you can't find Fringe. So we can see the aliens eating humans and what they're here for and all that kind of stuff. So they've showed their hand, eyes wide shut, they showed us all kinds of stuff. And in the recent movies, like in Jupiter Ascending, there's a lot of stuff that goes on Jupiter. And part of the issue is you have to understand There are the families, right? Bilderbergs, you know the families. So these families go back so far that we're like an outpost, okay, out here. And they have control over us. There were treaties signed among these families, and I don't mean on the planet, I mean between different planets and different solar systems. Now, the more, if you begin to understand the world, you know, they understood that there were sky brothers and sisters, right? That weren't gods, they were brothers and sisters. That they understood that there was war going on. Krishna and the whole, you know, the blue being and fighting the aliens and the you know, listen. So it wasn't just a picture of something that, no, it was a pictorial picture of what did happen. So we see these in paintings all the way through history. And we have to say, well, wait a minute. So, with the idea of Dante and what he's presented, there was one particular video I watched, and I was like, I've always felt like I was a swordsman. And if I follow the Lee lineage back the way that I followed it, it would have put me in France. But the French came over to help Arthur and the Round Table. Okay. So that's how the Lee family, landed gentries, had property in England when they were actually French. So, but there was like this one battle that it was showing or something, and I was like, I was there. I died in a battle during that period. I was skewered through, and I was like, oh, holy crap! I had a, and you know, I wasn't some kind of, you know, master knight or anything. I was, you know, probably pretty good with a sword, but I was just defending the people, right? But and that still makes me wonder why I'm so good with a bow and arrow without ever having to really practice. Um, anyway, so we have these previous lives if we wish to accept it. And by the way, I found two Edgar Casey books. Whoops, hang on. Did y'all go for a ride there? Um, I knew I had them. This one is an old book. I've had it for quite a while. The Edgar Casey Remedies. Okay. And this particular book, um, wow, that's some really small print. Here, let me put my double glasses on here. These are my bifocals. I can't see the screen, but $1983, it says. This one was written. This one is Edgar Casey, The Sleeping Prophet. The sixth grade dropout who astounded the scientific experts of the world. Yeah, he surely did that. And I'm looking for the year this one was published. This one, 1967. And some of the world prophecies, doctors and Casey, California earthquakes, Casey's time clock, um, Atlantis, reincarnation, the Casey babies, the reckoning, the dream world, the incurable diseases. Those are the chapters here in this book, and so I'm going now that I found it. I'm like, I need to read this again and go through here, and then come back and have a discussion with you about it. Where's that one? The Casey babies, 262. I was trying to see if he. Oh, that's way back. Okay, this is not what I thought I was going to find. Well, they're talking about that island over there. Uh, if the volcanoes erupted, geologists read aloud, they could split the island and cause it to crumble into the sea. The Pillars of Hercules is supposed to be, the Straits of Gibraltar, and those islands that are off the coast of Africa is the one that if the island splits in half, it's going to be the nasty one. So this was printed. This is what Casey was talking about back in the 30s and 40s, and they're still talking about that volcano in that island now. So you have to scratch your head and go, was Casey crazy, or did he actually see into the future, into a different timeline, or what our timeline was going to be like? So, and I've known about many of these thunder.